everyone. I want to welcome our veterans especially. If you're a veteran, can you please stand if you can or raise your hand? We want to welcome you. Oh my, look at that. We are so blessed. We're so blessed. Thank you so much for your service and because you are brave, we are free. I want to also welcome all of our guests today. If you're a guest, can you please raise your hand? Yay, thank you. Thank you for coming. And of course, all our faithful members. We have over 115 people here today. Isn't that great? As we head into this election, we know we encourage everyone. We hope every one of you are going to be voting. We trust you are. And please go out and get another neighbor or friend to vote with you. We do have our ballot box in the back at the check-in table. So before the end of the day, you can certainly give us your ballot. So now I want to invite up our chaplain, Steve Thomason, to give our invocation.
Blessed are you, Lord, creator of the universe, who brings wine and bread to our table. We want to lift up our two sisters, Anita and Barbie, today and ask for your comfort for their loss and their family's loss. And Lord, we ask for your wisdom this week as we cast our ballots, that we will be wise. And we thank you and honor your presence today as we go through our proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Now we're going to ask Steve to do the pledge, so if you would stand. Thank you, Steve. Okay, now I want to invite up Karen Blanco. You know, every week, every month when we meet, I'm always asking for someone to take on a new role. Well, I had an answer to prayer, and Karen Blanco is going to be a new Americanism person, and she's also going to do the articles in the Globe. So I'm thrilled to have her. So Karen.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be with you today. Beautiful day outside. Webster's dictionary defines Americanism as, quote, attachment or allegiance to the traditions, institutions, or ideals of the United States, unquote. In that spirit, let's honor our first president, George Washington, whose 292nd birthday was last week. George Washington was born on February 22nd, 1732 in Virginia, the oldest of 6 children. A tall and athletic youth, he loved hunting in the woods and riding his horse when he was not doing farm chores. He attended formal school for a total of only about 7 years, but he was an avid and serious reader and scholar over his lifetime. His father died when George was only 11 years old, leaving George's widowed mother to raise their children by herself. As he matured, George decided to become a surveyor, since he had a talent for mathematics and map making. As a surveyor, George was a thrifty, self-made man who spent most of his wages on land. At one time, he owned 70,000 acres between the Potomac and Ohio rivers. Washington's military life began during the French and Indian War when he was in his 20s. He fought for Britain against France for control of North America. Washington was well respected for his bravery during the war. Concerning one battle, he later wrote, quote, I luckily escaped without a wound, though I had 4 bullets through my coat and 2 horses shot under me, unquote. After his war duties ended, Washington married widow Martha Custis and adopted her 2 children as his own. They settled at Mount Vernon, where Washington happily farmed, made business deals, and attended balls and fox hunts like other Virginians. In 1775, he represented Virginia at the Continental Congress in Philadelphia, where he was elected commander-in-chief of the newly formed Continental Army. Although he was not a signer of the Declaration of Independence, he said he hoped the document would inspire his troops to win the war for independence against England. Washington overcame tremendous challenges with his Continental soldiers. His largest army was 20,000 men compared to 50,000 British soldiers. Congress could not afford to arm, clothe, or feed the troops properly. There were times when the barefoot Continental troops raided beehives and shot squirrels to keep from starving. Finally, after 6 years of preparation and intense training, Washington's forces, with French help, defeated the British at Yorktown. Washington was hailed as the greatest hero of the American Revolution. And at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, he was elected convention president. Although he mostly kept quiet, his dignified presence helped to minimize disputes and craft the new government. To no one's surprise, he was elected to serve as our nation's first president under the new Constitution. Sadly, George Washington passed away on December 12, 1799, at the age of 67, from a throat infection, probably what we would today call strep throat. He had been out on horseback for 2 days in cold weather, supervising activities at Mount Vernon. He became increasingly ill with laryngitis and a severe sore throat. In the following days, doctors were called who performed all kinds of medical treatments of that time, including bloodletting, but to no avail. As his condition worsened, he reviewed his will. He told his secretary, Tobias Lear, quote, "I find I am going. My breath cannot last long. I believed from the first that this disorder would prove fatal," unquote. He asked Mr. Lear to gather all of his military letters and papers, arrange his accounts, and settle his books. At one point, Washington told the family physician, "Doctor, I die hard, but I'm not afraid to go." Washington died between 10 and 11 at night, with his wife Martha sitting at the foot of his bed. So let's remember, admire, and emulate our courageous, dignified, and patriotic first President of the United States. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to bring up our Vice President of Programs, Ro Kendall, to introduce our.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you all for being here. It's a great day, and I'm so excited to introduce our first speaker today, our keynote speaker, Jason Baez, and he's endorsed by our Orange County District Attorney for the position of Superior Court Judge, and he's well qualified. He has over 20 years of service in Orange County as a Deputy District Attorney and is currently serving as Supervisor of the Gang Target. That's a unit that protects against violent felony gang members and crimes. Also, the Narcotics Enforcement Team, which prosecutes the most serious drug dealers. He also supervises the Burglary Cruise Team, and they lead the fight against home invasion and the organized retail theft that we've seen so much of on the news. He also serves the community as a volunteer in our school classrooms to teach children about the dangers of drugs, gangs, and bullying. As a Southern California native, a husband, and a father, he knows firsthand about the importance of public safety in Orange County. Please help me welcome Jason Baez.
The first thing I want to say is thank you very much, specifically to Pat and Ro for inviting me. I am so grateful for this opportunity to speak to your club, and so thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation. My name is Jason Baez. I am running for Superior Court Judge, seat number 3. I've been a Deputy District Attorney for 20 years, serving to protect the public safety of Orange County. Currently, I am the supervisor of the Gang and Target Unit, and the DAs that I supervise prosecute the serious and violent felony committing gang members that are the worst danger to the County of Orange. I also supervise the Narcotics Enforcement Team, and what major narcotics they prosecute involve the hardcore drug deals involving dangerous drugs like fentanyl. And the threshold for our unit, the major narcotics unit, to even get that case is over a kilogram of the drugs. So I'm very proud of the work that they're doing to try to keep that poison off of our streets. And the third group of deputy district attorneys that I supervise are our new organized retail theft and burglary crews unit. Our elected district attorney, Todd Spitzer, knew that there was a need to create a new team. We have 5 vertical prosecutors, and what vertical means is taking a case from the beginning of filing all the way through the end, and it's an experienced prosecutor who's been tested already in trying felony trials. We have a team of 5 of them that I supervise that are prosecuting these home invasion residential burglars, whether they be the gang members from Riverside or LA County or the South American theft groups that I'm sure you've heard of were wreaking havoc. And then also our organized retail theft team that's prosecuting this just epidemic of smash and grab robberies and stealing that's happening in our retail stores. And we're already making a major dent in this, letting people know if you steal in Orange County, we're going to prosecute you. So that's what I'm doing now, but how did I get here? How did I become a supervisor of these units in the Orange County DA's office? Well, as I stated, I've been a deputy district attorney for 20 years, and besides going through the normal units in our office as you go up, I did misdemeanors, I did juvenile court, then you do what's called felony panel. That is 18 months of general felony trials to see how you do and how good you are at trial. Can you handle the serious cases? And I was very fortunate to be one of the founding members of our vehicular homicide team. And we were the first DA's office in the state, Orange County was, to have a vehicular homicide team. And what those cases are the DUI, the drunk drivers who kill people because of their drunk driving, or hit and runs with death. And I did those cases for about 2.5 years as one of the founding members. I'm very proud of the work we did there. And those cases, it's a little different from gangs, especially with respect to the victims. This new unit was needed. And the reason why is, with the gang members, their victims' families usually know that their family members involved in a dangerous lifestyle and something could happen to them at any day. They still don't like it. They still grieve when something happens, but they have some notice. But on the vehicular homicide cases, it was someone who went for a bike ride, or someone who went to go buy a gallon of milk and they just never came home. Their family had no idea they were never coming home. And it hits them, it's much more difficult for them to deal with it because they had no notice, were caught by surprise. And then unless we can file a murder for the DUI killers, say they had prior DUIs and kept doing it anyway, the sentencing is nowhere near what the murder sentencing is like. So even it was very emotionally taxing, but also very rewarding because you needed to bring justice home for those families of those victims who were completely innocent and were just mowed down by a drunk driver. After vehicular homicide, I'm the supervisor of gangs now, but for 7 years I was one of the line DAs on the front lines trying those cases against gang members who commit serious and violent felonies, what you've heard about as strike offenses in California, crimes like murder, carjacking, robbery, stabbings, shootings, vandalisms, all the things that the gang members do. And so I spent 7 years of my career there fighting to make sure that these gang members got held accountable for their horrible actions and just the terrible danger to the public safety. So often the victims weren't the rival gang member that they were trying to get, but just an innocent bystander that got caught in the crossfire. You might have seen in the news within the last year that a mother who was just inside of a parking lot got shot and killed because some gang members were trying to shoot at each other. And that's, of course, not the first one. We've had that over the years. So after my time in gangs, that I did all those trials, and the life of a trial lawyer is hard. You eat, sleep, and do the trial when you're in trial, and that's it. You try to get enough sleep, but through my career, I did 97 trials. And You can't be a trial lawyer forever because that's not sustainable. I have a 17-year-old son now, and I'm married. And at some point, my wife had the talk with me of, hey, something's got to change. Because I was a good husband to the Orange County DA's office, but I needed to be a good husband and father at home, and I was trying my best. But after those 97 trials, I was kind of ready to. I got my trials out of me. I always had that fire to go in and do justice, but at that point, I expressed an interest in management, and fortunately, because of my career and the things that I had done, I did a unit called Special Prosecutions as well that handled high profile cases that were too serious for our general felonies. But they welcomed me into management in March of 2019, and I've been a manager there ever since. I started out as what's called an assistant head of court, where I was the junior supervisor at the first. I started at the North Justice Center that's in Fullerton, and then they moved me to the Central Justice Center in Santa Ana. And after that, after just 1 year of being an assistant head of court, they made me a full-blown supervisor in management and gave me what I have today, being the supervisor of the gang and target unit, which is one of the highlights of my career, to be trusted by DA Spitzer to be prosecuting our most serious cases, homicides and gang members. And I'm so proud of the work that all my deputy district attorneys do. The last time card approval that I did, I had 37 employees, and they're all doing a very good job. I'm so fortunate to have them. So, yeah, thank you. So after this time as a deputy DA, why do I want to become a judge? Well, it's time for me to serve in a different way. I've served as the advocate, as the prosecutor, and now there's some things that I've observed around the United States, around California, that I see that I have a vision for the Orange County way of public safety and justice, that I want to make sure that there's a courtroom representing that way. And my goals are to have a courtroom where, number one, the thing that's most important to me is that the law is always followed. No messing around. People need to have faith in our criminal justice system and that it's working correctly. And that starts with judges following the law no matter what. Doesn't matter who the parties are. Doesn't matter what kind of case it is. It can't be different for different people. You can't have... You can't have a rogue judge who's legislating from the bench and just doing whatever they want. You have to follow the law. So that's core principle number one for me. The second thing that is related, but there is some differences, it needs to be fair. You can't choose how you're going to act and whether you're going to follow the law because it's a different party or someone in particular that your politics might disagree with. And I think we're seeing way too much of that. I have to be very careful about what I'm talking. There's a judicial canon of ethics 2A that says a judicial candidate can't talk about any cases or controversies likely to come before the courts. So even though I definitely have opinions on a lot of things happening right now, a specific instance that's going to be before the court, I can't talk about that, but I can talk about my beliefs in general. And one of those things, and the way I'll say it right now, is fairness. You can't change what the goalpost is, depending on the party, depending on what type of action it is, depending on whether politics are involved. And so another core principle of me being a judge is that it's going to be fair for everyone, no matter who they are. They're going to be heard. I'm going to listen. I'm not going to make up my mind until I've heard all the evidence. And then I'm going to follow the law based only on the evidence when I make rulings. And then the third thing is just part of who I am and how I've done my career. The third thing is treating every single person with dignity and respect in the courtroom, whether it be the attorneys that are in front of me, the courtroom staff, a witness, a victim, the defendant, or even someone that's just in the gallery watching. I think that is so important. Because a lot of people have very little contact with our criminal justice system. or the courts in general. You might be called as a juror a few times. You might have something happen to you where you're actually a victim or you were a witness in a case. You might have a friend that those things happen to. And so the society has such few instances where they're in front of a court and see what's happening that if you have a judge that's rude, is more concerned about when they're going to leave and how fast this is going to get done, that's going to be the impression that this member of the public has of the courtroom and how our justice system's operating, and that's not okay. And the times that I've been in court and seeing a judge, even if it's not to me, but being rude to anyone, has always made me feel very uncomfortable because I felt this is a reflection on everyone who's in court right now thinking of this is how it works. And so that's always been very important to me. And I've demonstrated that through the support that I've received. In 2016, I was the North Orange County Bar Association Attorney of the Year. And that association, it's mainly made up of members of the criminal defense bar. And while I've always been a strong advocate for justice and gave everything I had on every single case, I treated the opposing attorneys with dignity and respect because you got to be professional, and that's the right way to do it. And so I think winning that award, more than just the title of Attorney of the Year, which was nice, but the more important thing to me with that was that was a group of peers that were my adversaries in our job. And the fact that they respected me and knew that I did it the right way was one of the things that meant a lot to me. It showed that I'm doing my career the way it should be done. Because it's something separate. You know, our office and has given me accolade in the position that I've earned. But to have your adversaries recognize it too, that's a really good perspective that you're doing things the correct way. So those are the reasons that I want to be a judge. And I am so grateful to the Republican Party and to the citizens of Orange County. I announced that I was running for judge in July of 2022, and it's been a long road. We're done this Tuesday. I only have one opponent, so the election's over. Someone's going to get 50% plus one. It is going to be me. But the reason why isn't because of me. It's because of this just tremendous, outstanding support I've received from the citizens of Orange County, the opportunities that I've had to speak to people, hear what matters to them, tell you what truly matters to me. And without the help that I've received and invitations to your club, thank you, and the chance to reach the voters and talk to them, that's the reason things are going so well. My career got me the endorsements in the beginning that legitimized my campaign, but then speaking and the support of the party and from citizens like you gave me the fundraising I needed to reach out to the voters, and that's why it's going well. So I say thank you. Pat, did you want, what's next? You want questions or? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Sure. I'll start with the DA's office, what I do now. The police investigate crimes, and they're the ones that gather the evidence, interview the witnesses, and put everything together of whether or not, someone can be prosecuted. And then once they have that investigation together, that's where the district attorney's office becomes involved. The police send the case to the district attorney's office to evaluate, is there enough evidence? Can we prove our filing standard is beyond a reasonable doubt? Can we prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? And someone who's a deputy district attorney will review the case and look at the evidence and determine, was a crime committed? And if so, can we prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? So that's our function. The police do it first, and then they give it to us. And then we're the attorneys that don't just file the case, but we're the ones in court that talk to the jury and explain, put on the evidence to prove to a jury that this person committed a crime beyond a reasonable doubt. We have that burden of proof. The judge's role is different. Um, Having the burden of proof and being the advocate, I was happy to do it. I put all my heart into it, but it is exhausting. And in a way, I can't wait to not have a side, because as a judge, you have to be impartial. And so as a judge, you're not the advocate anymore. The prosecutor's the one putting on the case, or if it's a civil case, the party's attorneys. But as the judge, you're making sure that that trial is fair and that the law is followed. That's your job. So when a case comes in, you see if the parties perhaps can resolve it. But if it's going to be a trial, then it's the judge's job to look at the evidence and make sure only the relevant evidence is coming in that matters for this case. It's not going to be open to everything in the world that has nothing to do with it and take 4 times longer than the jury needs to be there. So you make sure that the relevant evidence is coming in, and make rulings on evidence. And then you're the one that instructs the jury. And then during the trial, when the attorneys are putting their case on, you rule on objections, because sometimes the attorneys ask questions they shouldn't ask, or they asked a question before they really laid the foundation for that question. They kind of put the cart before the horse. So you're making legal rulings on whether or not the questions are proper, and just making sure the law is followed, that it's a fair trial. And that's especially important when it's a criminal defendant, because then someone's constitutional rights are involved. And it's very important in my mind as a judge that you're going to make sure that you do public safety and protect the community. That's part of a judge's job. But also freedom is important. It's the bedrock of this country. And you need to make sure that if a criminal defendant is convicted, that it was fair and that the law was followed. Something related to that about when I said treating everyone with dignity and respect, I've really admired judges that gave a defendant a harsh sentence that they deserved, but did it completely professionally. And I've seen judges sentence someone to life in prison and treat that person with dignity and respect, and was as a complete professional as a judge. And I've always thought that's the way to do it. That judge is a pro.
For your personal opinion on the effect that George Soros has had on the justice system across the entire country.
Well, he definitely has influence over media and influence in donations to candidates. And a lot of those donations to candidates are used for media to publicize and endorse a candidate. And it has made a difference. I mean, when someone has ads on TV saying something to the public, there's certain subjects, there's certain parts of the public that just see these ads and believe that it's true, what's being shown to them. And I think that that's made a very large impact on people's perception of what's happening in public that might not be reality. So anytime you have someone with a large financial base that is using it to publicize causes or candidates, that media exposure is extremely helpful to whatever that cause is, regardless of whether the content is correct. So I think there's been a very large impact on the community as a whole, and I think it has affected. You have people who see something and then maybe vote a certain way because they saw it, and they might be uninformed. And so it's media is a very powerful way to reach out to the voters, but it's also very dangerous if the content doesn't reflect what's truly happening in society. The way it works is that when we file our complaints, that's the legal document charging someone with a crime. We make a bail recommendation on the complaint, and then in court, when this person gets arraigned, we make our request for a specific bail at that time too. The judge then, using what's called this, there's a uniform bail schedule in Orange County that has basic recommendations of what bail is for each offense. So that's the guideline, but depending on specific facts that have happened in a case, they could deviate from that more or less, and the attorneys argue and give their pitch, and then with the information that the judge may have received from the attorneys or um, pro, um, there's different acronyms for groups within the court system that give recommendations and other information to the judge too. The judge takes that into account, and then it's ultimately the judge's decision at arraignment what the bail will be.
As a transplant from Northern California, our structure up there is a little differently. So I'm hearing that in your department, you would be only hearing criminal cases. Would you not be hearing civil?
For the Orange County Superior Court, the presiding judge makes the assignments. So I'd be taking the bench in January of 2025. I have no idea what my assignment's going to be. Of course, all my experiences in criminal law. I did do in law school some civil litigation as a law intern or law clerk for two summers before I took some trial advocacy courses and realized I wanted to be in the courtroom. But what my assignment will be determined by the presiding judge, and I could get sent to criminal, probate, juvenile, family law. Which assignment I get is not up to me. I say yes, presiding judge, and then I go do my best.
What determines whether a case would go to a county judicial system or the state?
Okay, well, and I'll add one more thing too, federal. Crimes committed in Orange County go to the district attorney's office. The state has the state prosecutors are the attorney generals that work for Mr. Bonta, because he's the attorney general of the state of California. They usually handle different things than criminal, because criminal cases are usually prosecuted by either a city attorney or that county's district attorney's office. But the attorney general, say you have something that's a statewide problem and not limited to one city or county, or it's something that might be more civil in nature, the attorney general's office would handle that. But then you also have even crime that could happen in Orange County that might violate a federal statute. For example, RICO is the term for racketeering that the federal government has, and then those are assistant U.S. attorneys, and they prosecute when a federal crime has been committed. So it's and sometimes it can overlap. Something could be a state crime and be a federal crime. So the police agencies who do the investigations look at what they have, and then they have to decide who are we going to take it to depending on what kind of case they have before them.
Several things. I had one question primarily, but the thing about George Soros being brought up, it's gone back 3,000 years. To ignore history, you're doomed to repeat it time and time and time again. He's a primary, but there's so many other things that are going on, seeing this country divided in so many pieces now. It's really a shame, and we need to individuals fight against this, literally fight against it. So anyway, my question is, how do you feel about people with CCWs?
The question was, how do I feel about people with CCWs? And that's a concealed carry weapon. So the sheriff is the one who determines whether or not a concealed carry permit is going to be given to someone. And they try to make sure that it's not someone who shouldn't have a firearm, someone who might have mental health issues, and, they try to make sure that it's not someone like that who it's an obvious danger. But also those permits traditionally, and I don't know all of their regulations of how they make the decision, but I don't have a problem with the concealed carry weapons when it's someone who has a legitimate reason to have it. For example, I'm the head of the gang unit, right? There's a lot of individuals in this county who, over the 7 years I was a line DA in gangs, did not like me. And they were people who killed people. So deputy DAs in the gang unit are some of the people eligible to apply for a concealed weapons permit because they're at risk of, when you're leaving the courthouse, they could be there in the parking lot. We're out in public walking in and out of the courthouse. It's not some secret underground tunnel to some kind of parking garage. We don't have government doesn't have the financial resources to have that level of protection for us. So off-duty police officers, people that are at risk because of their job, any kind of safety risk, or any kind of very, very important duty that that person needs to be protected. I think they have the right to be able to defend themselves, to have that on them.
Okay, people say guns kill people.
People kill people.
Okay. There are 48,000 or so people die in automobile accidents every year. So if you ban guns, then you should ban cars. I think it's like 3,000 people are murdered every year with knives. So we need to ban knives, etc. You get my drift. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Thank you. One thing I can add is, and again, I can't talk about any challenges to them or court or specific case, but doing gangs for 7 years, I think there's only one time I've even heard, and not just my caseload, everyone's caseload. So I was a line DA for 7 years in gangs, and now I've been supervising gangs for, it's going to be another 4. So this is over a decade. I've only heard one time of a firearm used in a gang case that was actually registered to the person who committed the crime. All the other ones were either these stolen or these new ghost guns that are illegal as well. So someone who has a CCW or has that gun registered to them, those aren't gang members using those guns in these crimes. But wherever the mic is now.
Yes, thank you so much. We're so grateful you came today. It seems that so many domestic problems, they call in for a domestic dispute, and then our officers show up, and they're all being killed. I don't know if it's happened in Orange County, but throughout this country. Can you explain, why are we having our officers come and put themselves in such a vulnerable, I know they don't know what's ahead, but isn't there another way to serve papers for domestic disputes and not have them lose their lives over it?
That's a very tough situation, because the other side of the coin is, if you just send somebody who has a different job there, they're even more at risk because they can't defend themselves. So I think it's more about the individual being served. They're unfortunately controlling what's going to happen when that occurs, and it is a shame. It's very, very difficult to be a police officer in the United States right now. And my heart goes out to them, because society's view of their service is, let me put it this way, the vast majority of them are doing their best to protect our public safety and are doing your job correctly every single day. But as soon as you get one incident, and there's always going to be a portion of any group that might not do things the right way, but those incidents are being used to paint all of them a certain way, and society's respect, not just for the job they do, but for their safety, has, I think, extremely declined over the last 10 years. And it's a shame, and I feel so badly for them, because they're literally, every day that they suit up, don't know if they're going to come home, and their safety's at risk, and they're not in control of the situation. That they don't know what situations they're going to see on that shift, and they're not in control of what situations they're going to see. They get a call and they respond because the public needs help, and they've volunteered to do that as a profession to protect us. And the fact that that sacrifice is not being recognized the way that it used to is terrible. But yeah.
To your knowledge, has Orange County been infiltrated by migrants? I had an experience going to T-Mobile off of El Toro, and to me, what looked like 20 migrant men with backpacks and knapsacks were in the parking lot. I was scared to death to get out of my car. Luckily, I was parked right smack in front of the T-Mobile office. And, you know, I could just run in and run right out. But I'm very concerned about this in Orange County. Are there migrants from the southern border in Orange County?
Something that an answer I am allowed to tell you is that part of our burglary cruise team was made in response to the South American theft groups that were doing residential burglaries, mainly along homes that were next to an open space, some kind of green belt or park or something like that. And the tips that we have to stay safe from that are that we've learned of as far as how they operate is make sure your porch light is on. They'll be waiting and they'll see which house the lights don't come on at, and then they'll hit that house. And they're very good. They're out in less than 10 minutes. We've had many South American theft groups, residential burglaries in Orange County, and that was one of the reasons we created the burglary cruise team to combat that from occurring. Particular Brea, Huntington Harbor, parts of Irvine have been hit very, very hard. Yeah. Yeah.
Immigration is a big measure and interest for everyone in the United States. Are there any statistics as to how many illegals have committed crimes in Orange County?
Wouldn't know the statistics off the top of my head. I mean, of course, there are people here committing crimes of all backgrounds. So yes, there are numbers. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head about that, but there's a surprising amount of crime. Fortunately, in the past, it wasn't at the level where the average citizen felt concerned for their safety just on a daily basis. But I feel like recently that is changing. These smash and grabs and the home invasion residential burglaries were an epidemic problem. And we've already seen a dent since we created this team. The numbers are going down. Specifically, the residential burglaries are going down. I think they know that if they do it here, we're going after them with everything we've got. Our district attorney was very dedicated to that. We have over 100 judges, but I think we're down at least 12, which is better because earlier we were down at least 20. And the caseloads are very high. Family court in particular is impacted with cases that are aging, and that's very sad because those cases are very important to the people involved, and they're having to wait. That's kind of a function of constitutional rights. A criminal defendant has certain time. They have to do what's called waiving time for their case to get delayed past a certain point, since their freedom is involved. And so there has to be a certain number of judges assigned to the criminal panel to make sure that no defendant's case goes longer than it legally can, because those cases can be dismissed if that happens. And because of that, some of the other courts don't have the things happen as quickly as it happens in criminal, but we need more judges. The caseloads are too high. And hopefully I'm going to be able to help out with that. Well, the vast majority of the judges are appointed by the governor. It's only when a sitting judge retires during the election cycle that judge's seat goes up for election. And this time, 3 judges retired during the election cycle, and that's why there's 3 seats that you have 3 deputy district attorneys running for: myself, Whitney Bokoski, and Richard Zimmer. Other than that, the governor, Gavin Newsom, gets to appoint all the rest of the judges as he sees fit. And the timeline that gets used usually is there's a certain period of time the governor has to appoint a judge. If the governor doesn't appoint a judge in that amount of time, that seat will go to election. And they don't make the mistake of not getting to appoint who they want and letting a prosecutor come in at election time and nab that seat. So they're very good about appointing someone before that time period expires. But because they appoint for every county in the entire state of California, a lot of the appointments do linger until that deadline is approaching.
When an immigrant gets caught committing a crime, do you catch them and then release them in Orange County?
Well, they're just like everyone else. They get whatever sentence they get for the case, and they have to do the time for that sentence. If they have some type of immigration hold, then it's the federal government who it's on them to realize this person has a hold and then handle immigration proceedings. The county judges don't handle a deportation. That's all the federal system.
Thank you for speaking today. I have a question about, you mentioned porch lights. I was just thinking, with your vast experience in criminality since the invasion, because we are being invaded, what are some suggestions that we can do to keep us safe? Just some basic things.
Okay. The first thing is at night, make sure right at dusk that your porch light's on so they know someone's home. Because in particular, the South American theft groups aren't looking for a confrontation. They want it to be very easy, and they're very good at it, which was why in the beginning it took a while for us to get good at catching them. Another thing that's important is a lot of especially homes near an open space, a lot of the thieves are entering through a second story access point. They'll use a ladder to a window or a balcony. And the reason they're doing that is most people have the first floor secured, and their security system only is on their first floor. Their security system isn't on the second floor entry point, especially if someone has a balcony. So if you have a security system, expand it to your second floor main access points, and then make sure you lock and secure the second stories as well. In general, out in the public, be vigilant. If you're somewhere you're not usually at, that's not a safe area, make sure you're walking with someone else rather than alone. Don't make yourself an easy target. Don't do things like flashing money or showing it. My father from a very young age taught me, hey, you don't take your wallet out in public unless you're paying for something right then, and then you put it back in, because you can't have people seeing you have this handful of money and while you're walking around outside the store or something with it, because then they look and see you're a particular target. And another thing that's a problem these days is social media. You never publicize that you were not, people want to share all this information. I'm on vacation, it's so fun. I'm at this restaurant, it's so good. Do it once you're back. Because if you do it and it's public while you're gone, you just broadcast to the public, no one's at my house right now. Or I'm at a restaurant. I'm out of the state right now. You're going to have all the time in the world to go through my house because I'm not there. So don't, or even videos from within your house. We've had issues where they knew the particular items to steal in a house because someone had done a video walking around their house, but in the background you could see all the valuables that they had. And so that was just advertised to the thieves. And then they saw that and they waited for the person not to be home. And not only did they burglarize the house, they knew what they wanted to get. It was like shopping for them. So avoid things where you're publicizing vulnerability.
Alien is released from prison. Do they notify Orange County? Does they notify ICE or immigration?
Okay, I heard your question this time. Yeah. Whether or not any of the cities within Orange County, it would be up to their city councils to vote, have some kind of vote whether they want to be a sanctuary city. And I've been prosecuting criminals in our office, not going to city council meetings. So the answer is I don't really know if the city councils have been doing that for theirs. There's none that I've heard of that I just know as I'm standing here. And then the second question about reporting to ICE, the state prison system, the California Departments of Correction and Rehabilitation, I do not know that they notify immigration, federal immigration, upon a release. There was a law in California that they passed to prohibit our local sheriffs from cooperating with ICE, which is the law that our sheriff has been given, and so that's the status of that. But that's our legislature and what we've got up in Sacramento right now.
I just wonder if you have any problems with cleaning groups that come in. Have you had reports of stealing or problems there?
With the gangs and then the organized retail theft, I have not seen a fact pattern that the weigh-in was cleaning. Through my career in the past, I have seen some cases where there's the person who's the cleaner, and it's usually the boyfriend or something that follows them to their job. And it might not even be the cleaning persons. They don't want them to do it. They're not going to be able to work in that house anymore. But not too much of that, actually. It's usually someone who's a thief, and it's what they do.
Am I? Yeah. Okay. I have a comment and then a question. As far as I know, the rules in Switzerland for every single household is that they own a firearm and that the head of that household be adept at using it. And I hear so many women who are scared to death of guns. Guns protect. Switzerland has one of the lowest crime rates on the planet because every household is armed. And the second thing is more of a question. Why do some solid conservators like Ann Coulter despise Donald Trump so much? He was good on the border. He's trying to cut down central government. We have way too much power in Washington, D.C. So what's the problem? Is it the man, the personality?
Well, I think the answer to that question is going to be up to every individual, and that's pure politics. As far as so I can't speak for why someone feels that way, and pure politics and answers to that are something that, like I'll give you an example. The presidency and what's happening in the cases absolutely is a case in controversy. Like, it's not just likely to come before the courts, it is before the courts. So I'd be speculating if I'm talking about why other people are doing things to begin with, and then since that's pure politics and not that's something that isn't really in the realm that I'm supposed to be talking about. That's a good question, and this goes to the safety question earlier about what you can do. If you're somewhere and it looks like a bunch of people are about to come into the store to steal, the first thing you've got to do is make sure that you're safe, and that you're in a place of safety. And then the second thing you've got to do is call the police. These things happen so quickly that if the police aren't called immediately, the chances of catching them become lower and lower. And then as a county in Orange County, we need these criminals to know that this is not a place where you just run in and steal things, nobody cares and no one does anything. They need to know that if you go in and steal, that someone's going to call the police and the police are going to come and you're going to get arrested, and that if you steal in Orange County, that you're going to get prosecuted. Pat just brought up another good point. Any kind of device you have that's an alert or an alarm, criminals don't wait to be video recorded and with a bunch of witnesses around, they want to do what they're doing undetected. So for your personal safety, if you have any kind of device that makes a loud noise, brings attention, or if you don't even have that, yelling and help and drawing attention, that will help protect your safety, because most of the time they're going to run away because they're more afraid of getting caught than what they want to do to you.
Well, what do you think? He did great, didn't he? Thank you, Jason. I trust that you'll have every vote in this room for this election. So thank you so much for helping us understand more about what you do to keep us safe and about what you're going to do. And we really wish you the best. We just pray and trust that you'll get there. So thank you so much.